Welcome to Step It Up Stamping. I'm Barb Brimhall, and in this video, I'm going to show you how to start with a very simple card and then step it up with extra layers, techniques, details, so that you can make a card that fits where you're at on your own stamping journey. We want you to feel comfortable, so let's get started. Today we are using the Ornamental Christmas Bundle. It's a beautiful stamp set that comes with dies, but we're also adding to it one of the new items that I'm really loving that Stampin' Up! Is offering. It is the traditional wreath embossing folder, and I just love how delicate and yet bold it is at the same time. It's kind of an interesting 3D embossing folder, and that's what we're going to be using today. So let's get started. This is our Busy Bee card, and it's very simple. It features Night of Navy cardstock. Now, it does have a little bit different of a fold. It is 11, and it's scored at 5.5. And then you could see that I did stamp on the inside, and I want to explain how I stamped this. So I stamped the sentiment in Night of Navy, same color as the cardstock. I stamped the trees once, inked up my stamp, and then I stamped it again without re-inking. And that adds that depth of color, okay? And I did the same thing on the front. I stamped the 'Tis the Season with Night of Navy, so only one ink pad. And then what I did is I took one of our blending brushes. You could also use a sponge. And boy, I used a very, very light hand and just lightly sponged blue onto the white cardstock, which might make it seem like this cardstock is blue. It's not. It's white with just a little bit of sponging. And then to just add a little bit of sparkle, because we have to have sparkle on our Christmas cards, right? I added the Misty Moonlight and Silver Shimmer ribbon. Isn't that gorgeous? It's just gorgeous ribbon. Okay, so let me show you how that kind of sparkles. All right, so that is our Busy Bee for when you need a card in a hurry, or if you are a new stamper. Now let's bring out our Worker Bee card if you want to do a little bit more work. And this actually is a little bit more work this time. Usually I don't step up my Worker Bee cards quite this much, but let me tell you what I've done here. First of all, I've added another layer of Night of Navy, and that has been embossed with our embossing folder, the traditional wreath embossing folder. Then what I've done is I've taken some of our craft white ink and I've just sponged a little bit up here. Why? Because I was thinking this kind of looked like a moon. So I did the same thing that I did here, where I sponged a little bit of Night of Navy on here, again, very lightly. Okay, that's very important. And then I stamped it in Night of Navy on a separate piece of paper, stamped this again without re-inking. And then I did, in this case, and you could see if you look, I didn't do a totally 100% job, but rather than using the dies, which you'll see in the next card give you a perfect silhouette, I did do it with scissors. So I wanted to show you that it is possible. It would take a lot more time. The dies would make it a lot quicker. And then the other thing I did, and I am still divided on whether or not I like this or not. In this card, I stamped the sentiment in Night of Navy. Really like how that turned out. In this card, I stamped the sentiment in Smoky Slate, which is a light, let me see if I can get that a little bit more focused, which is a light gray. Not really sure if I'm happy with how that turned out. So I'll leave that up to you if you decide to recreate this card, whether or not you would use Smoky Slate or not. And then I just used, again, more of that Misty Moonlight and Silver Shimmer ribbon. I hope you could see how much that shimmers, even the ribbon part of it, not the edging of it, shimmers. And just tied a knot and then glued it behind this piece of cardstock. Now, I have instructions for you on all of this. You don't have to try to remember it. The instructions will have it for you if you decide that you would like to get those. And then what I did is I added a bunch, and I do mean a bunch, of our rhinestone gems. But aren't they fun? They just really add a lot of shimmer to this card. And I thought by adding just a little bit of white here, again, it looked like this was a moon, and that was just like a little glow of the moon. And I think it also balances out the card. Your eye tends to go down this way. Okay, you guys ready for the grand finale? This, my friends, is our worker bee card. Isn't this gorgeous? Now, I have to tell you that really, it's very, very similar to our worker bee card. Not that difficult, but one of the things I love is that it has an additional tree, and they're all stamped in navy. Isn't that pretty? And then these are just embellishment from the dies. Very, very pretty. Now, here's the main thing that I did differently, and I honestly don't know if I'm going to be able to show you. I embossed in silver the sentiment. I know it'll show down here, but it's very shiny, and then it goes with the silver paper here, which is part of our textured metallic papers. Isn't that fun? Oh my gosh, you guys, it's so pretty. Okay, so let's move to the inside. Same as before, nothing really difficult. So these three cards are actually very, very similar. Just depends on how you want to step them up as a Christmas card. If you kind of want to do the halfway point, it would be this card, the worker bee card. But you could see how much easier. I did want to point this out. This was hand cut, fussy cut. This, my friends, was die cut, and it makes all the difference in the world. The dies in this case are very much worth it. And then, of course, these are part of the dies as well. And I do think it's hard to tell in person, but I do think that the embossing the sentiment in silver embossing powder really makes a difference. You could see how that shines. And, you know, I don't use my rhinestones too much anymore, and I've got a ton of them, and I really love how they turned out on these trees. I hope you do too. Okay, so there you have it, my friends. Let's go back. We have got a very, very simple Christmas card that I still think is beautiful because it's got a lot of detail for a Busy Bee card. It only uses one ink pad, but with that one ink pad, it has a pretty impressive, in my opinion, appeal, especially for a Christmas card. You could do a ton of these. And I think this ribbon, which all you have to do is lay it flat on the card, which also will make this a one postage stamp card, which is very important to me at Christmas, because if you're going to mail out a lot of Christmas cards, you don't want to have to add extra postage to it. Then we have our worker bee card. Absolutely gorgeous. And then we have our queen bee over the top card. This is a hard one for me this week. I think because it's a Christmas card, I would probably make 70% of my cards out of the Busy Bee card. I still think this is a beautiful card. And then what I would probably do is make this card the worker bee card, but the difference I would make is I would emboss the sentiment in the silver embossing powder, or I would stamp this in Night of Navy. I am not real fond of this sentiment in the gray. I think it gets lost. So for me, I would do it in the Night of Navy, or I would emboss it with the silver embossing powder. And then you've got that nice sparkle on there. Definitely would keep all the rhinestones. And this is pretty flat. This ribbon is more of a knot, not a bow. So it's going to lay pretty flat too. So these should be not overly expensive cards to mail. Okay. All right, my friends, let me know in the comments if you are on Facebook, which one is your favorite and which one you would be most likely to make. If you're on YouTube, make sure that you comment there too, because I love to hear from you. Okay, my friends, talk to you later. Have a great creative week. Bye.